Bonsoir à toutes et à tous, et bonsoir à mon cher ami Yannick en Suisse.
Bonjour Benjamin, tu vas bien?
Bonsoir, it's the
Bonsoir.
evening.
Oh yes.
when this airs, it's shortly after 8 o'clock. Don't worry, we did not change the language to French. There's no auto-dubbing feature of YouTube. It's just that our topic today is slightly French.
Now I get it. Yeah.
C'est ton soirée de gloire, la musique de GoldenEye. The music of GoldenEye, that is our topic today.
Yes,
of course,
amazing.
The musical score composed by Eric Serra, born in 1959. He was just over 30, approaching 40 when he made GoldenEye, and you're the expert on all things music, GoldenEye. So I'm going to sit back, do nothing, just ask some silly questions, and you're going to explain the whole musical world of GoldenEye to us. And I understand you also brought a surprise.
Oh yes.
That is nice. So in the previous episodes, 2 have already aired. We spoke about the plot of GoldenEye and what it meant then and how it holds up today. And in the second episode, we spoke about cast and characters, and we established that this film not only changed Bond, but it showed a changed world that we lived in after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And now, together with you, I want to explore how this is reflected in the music. And we all know that the musical score of GoldenEye is a much debated one. A lot of innovations in the score, but not to everyone's taste. So let me start with this. It is often described as experimental and electronic, adjectives you could describe the score with. What do you think was Serra trying to achieve musically and tonally for this film?
I think that he was brought in on specific terms or with a specific idea. I mean, it is documented that the producers, Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, brought him in because they were big fans of the score of Leon the Professional. And they basically asked him to do something in that vein, which was the sound that he had created and that he employed all throughout the 90s. You hear it like in Leon, like in GoldenEye, The Fifth Element partially also. So that was that sonic world that he created back in the 90s. And I think that's exactly what he delivered. He made, because in many cases, if you compare certain tracks like The Fat Man or Room 4602, I think it is the number, you can hear that those cues are really similar in terms of style and instrumentation and so on to what he did in GoldenEye, partially, in the GoldenEye Overture and in certain little cues. And that's exactly what he delivered. And he just recently, I saw an interview with him, I think with the French James Bond Club, where they kind of went into detail how he came to be a composer of James Bond and GoldenEye in particular. And he was, according to his own admission or to his own story, he was quite spoiled at that time. He came out of a couple of successes, Deep Blue, etc., Leon, that were big international blockbusters. And so that's always also good for a composer, of course, especially back in those days. It's not much the case like that anymore, but back then it was. And he was quite, in those, for that sound, he was quite sought after. And I remember him telling the story that the time when GoldenEye came around, he wanted to focus on his album projects. So he has this band, Eric Serra, which is kind of a wordplay with his name. It's just the 4 letters, RXRA, and it stands for Eric Serra. And he wanted to focus on that. So he was not even too keen on working on GoldenEye, which is, it's absolutely insane to think about that. Especially, that's where I have some trouble. Sometimes in some interviews he says, oh, he always was a huge Bond fan and Bond this and Bond that. And then at the same time he almost turned down the opportunity to score a Bond movie, and it's just. But you know, he's older now. He's a little mellowed down, and he sometimes says that he was a little bit of a spoiled brat in that period. Of course, riding on a high wave and all these things that I've just explained. And so, but I'm still very glad that he actually made it, because to me, GoldenEye, like we've said in the previous episode, it's not only a movie and a production that influenced my life monumentally, but also it was the first connection from a soundtrack with a movie that actually felt like a marriage, that was so perfectly welded together and that it's inseparable. And that made me aware of what a soundtrack does, what a good soundtrack has to, what the role of a good soundtrack is, and how it can be perfectly married to what you see. And now I would be very interested because, and I'm not letting you off this easily. You said at the beginning before we started recording, well, I can't say much. I'm not a music expert. To me, I'm always a bit. I don't like that because, you know, back in the day when I started composing, my mother, I showed stuff to my parents and they always said, well, we're no music experts. She said, you listen to music all the time, so that makes you an expert already. I'm no better than you. So I would love to hear your opinion. Of course, I listen to the GoldenEye score completely differently, perhaps a little more analytical, a little more in depth. But of course, I also have my moments where I just sit back and enjoy it. How do you experience the GoldenEye soundtrack? What does it do with you?
Well, as we established in the episodes before, a lot of things you did not see when you were introduced to the world of GoldenEye and Pierce Brosnan's first film, because I saw it as an accident in the cinema. That is a story I always told everywhere. So I was not used to the traditional Bond sound, to the John Barry-made Bond sound. Of course, I had seen some Bond flicks on television. Sure, Live and Let Die was one of them. But I did not have a feeling or an expectation towards GoldenEye's score. It just exploded on screen.
But did you notice it? Sorry, did you notice it? Back when you first saw it,
yeah.
Put yourself back in that cinema.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I did.
And how? How did you notice it?
The first thing where I thought something is a little bit odd here was the car chase, obviously, because the music in there is really throwing me off until today, because you had seen other films that had car chases. A lot of them, of course, I was a child of 14, but I watched a lot of telly when I was young. So you were used to orchestral scores for these kinds of action sequences, you know, and this electronic departure from that surprised me, and it threw me off in the cinema. I remember that, and it still does until today. The GoldenEye Overture is something else, because that is it's dark and it sort of fits, because there's not much going on. There's a bit of sneaking, there's a bit of action, there's a bit of this and that, so it fulfills its purpose there. The rest of the score I did not pay much attention to when I saw it in the cinema, of course, later, but there is only a handful of cues that I can say I like, and the rest have always felt misplaced. However, and there's always a however, since we analyze and we, as the trailer says, deep dive into the world of GoldenEye, of course I have thought a bit about the music, why it's there, why it is in certain scenes, and you really have to go deep and understand what we discussed before, that this is a changed Bond. He came back after 6 years of no Bond, and everything that came before that you could regard as classic Bond, because it had the John Barry music and occasionally other composers.
Yes.
But this music by Eric Serra needed to fit the themes of the film, and there are a lot of themes in there, as we established. First of all, Bond being a relic, as M calls him, in a modern world, and the modern world often sounds like that, and it was supposed to sound like that, I guess.
Exactly.
And Serra got rid of all of this lush brass that the older Bond films had, the traditional recognizable Bond sound, which also had, you could call it swagger or something, and and he uses, I mean, you know the specific terms for that, but I would say metallic synthesizer sounds, percussion, things like that, and a lot of ambient textures in that,
Right.
you know, and this almost makes Bond's world in this film sound very foreign is not the right word, but alien maybe. It's
No, it's a good description.
It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
off.
right.
Something's off. But a lot in the film is off. I mean, the characters move in a changed world after the collapse of the Soviet Union. New enemies, new friends, new alliances, whatever. They all have to, and Bond, first and foremost, has to find his position in this new world. And I think that is what the soundtrack reflects very well. It is a departure, such as GoldenEye was a departure for the Bond series. They went totally different ways with that. And it's a very dark film. But a lot of Serra's work is very jumpy, very the car chase music, it's almost uplifting. It's like playful. It's very playful.
Playful. Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, it doesn't fit.
No,
Still until today.
I get that sentiment. I think both that track and the original version that he composed for the tank chase, which is, by the way, the first thing that I noticed back when I remember when I first saw GoldenEye. Sort of, I may have seen it before that when I remember it, but first time when I started to become a Bond fan, because we've talked about this in another podcast, I think, or another video, I think, that I did not start with GoldenEye. The first movie that I saw in cinema was The World's Not Enough, and then I went the back catalog. But the first time that I actively noticed something in the GoldenEye score is everything was quite in that style up until the tank chase. And the tank chase, of course, it's pure traditional Bond with strings and brass. Yeah. And I noticed, I loved it, but I noticed that it's completely different than everything that came before in that movie. And the thing is, that is one of the tracks, and the car chase. I agree with you. I sometimes when I drive around in my car, I love to listen to the car chase track. I think it's like you say, a quirky track. It's fun, but yeah, no, I agree. It does not really. I mean, in the same interview that I talked about earlier, he said that one of his proudest accomplishments of the GoldenEye score, one of his favorite tracks, is the car chase music, because, and I think most people don't even realize it. I didn't realize it either, that it's so perfectly in sync with the car chase, with certain sounds reflecting movements of the car, braking, accelerating, and so on.
Yep. I just thought of that. Yep.
Right, exactly. But I think what really, and I love Eric Serra and his work so much, but what I really have to say, what I think the first thing that throws most people off in that track is this weird squeaky guitar riff. Beep, 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 beep. It goes on. That's already sounds so, like you say, playful, and that's not what you expect from a James Bond car chase music. You don't want it to be playful.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's like this flute in The Man with the Golden Gun multiplied by 500. Yeah,
and that's an achievement. That says something.
Yeah, so I can understand that a lot of people feel it's out of place, it's odd, and that's how the soundtrack is often described. It feels out of place, or even distracting for a Bond film. But of course, a lot of people who voiced that opinion, they were used to the traditional classic Bond sound that John Barry made so famous. And this was a departure in every direction.
Yeah, clearly
sure. But there are also, equally, there are a lot of people who love the soundtrack for what it is and what Serra did. And you mentioned it before. I mean, his work with visionary filmmaker Luc Besson, The Big Blue, and Leon the Professional, where I think he took many tracks from and many cues he took from and put it into GoldenEye, because in Leon they are exactly identical in some scenes.
They temp-tracked it, yeah, right.
Yeah. So he had a signature style before GoldenEye, but he used it to influence the musical landscape of the film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, in all regards, when you listen to GoldenEye, I mean, it's a typical 90s soundtrack. Now, what is a typical 90s soundtrack? First of all, like you said, in the 90s, you had a lot of these, I would love to show you, but you had a lot of these synthesizer racks. So the old analog synthesizers from the 80s, they were thrown out of studios. They all got these digital synthesizers with, like you said, like these alien sounds, pad, textures, drones. And it was all throughout the 90s. And it's also that kind of what Eric Serra did. And what he did in particular, and he did it very well, which is like the Eric Serra signature move, was at least back in the 90s, is to pitch everything way down. So you had all sorts of weird sound effects and instruments. He just pitched them way down. And that made his sound very electronic, like you said, but still, because the original sound was somewhat natural or came from a natural source, it still sounded somewhat organic, and that's something that I really loved. And I could not put it into words, but I loved that as a child already, and influenced me. And another thing about 90s productions is you can hear when you listen to the GoldenEye Overture nowadays, when you take a modern track or a track that was released in the last, I would say, 15, 20 years, and you listen to the GoldenEye score, the mix is quite muffled. So it doesn't have a lot of highs. It doesn't have, exaggerated low basses and stuff like that. It's all quite muddy and a little bit like listening through a pillow. You really notice that heavily when you compare it to other tracks. It works for GoldenEye, but that's even more why I would love to nowadays to be able to listen to a remastered version, not change too drastically, but just a little bit of touching up here and there, just to get a broader experience of that music.
Speaking about remastered or reinvented or reimagined, you brought us a little treat for tonight, didn't you?
Exactly, yeah. So I was preparing for this episode, and all the time already when we talked about making this video series back at the beginning of the year, I was thinking, well, I already made a video going into details with many of explaining the instruments and sounds and where they come from which synthesizer and how they were used. And I thought, well, what could I contribute to your channel, to this video series that we do? And I thought I would recreate the GoldenEye Overture. Now, why would you recreate something that's great already? It starts very traditionally with like the original GoldenEye Overture, and I take a lot of pride in that, not because I'm such a great composer, but just because I spent the major part of my life researching and finding all those sounds. So it's quite close to the original. And then as it progresses, it gets progressively more, a little bit, like you said, reimagined. There are more things added. It's done in a little different style, like with the thought, what would it sound like if maybe another composer was involved, or it was written nowadays, or something like that.
But in the beginning, when I listened to it, when you sent it to me, in the beginning, I thought this is the GoldenEye Overture. Just as it is on the soundtrack album, which I still have, by the way. Look at that. 29 years ago, I bought that. 29 years ago.
Yeah.
And
right.
this is an interesting story because when I saw the film in the cinema, it was sort of January 1996, something like that. Early in January. And we had one store in the village where I lived, which was a very, very small village in the south of Germany. And it was an electronics store, and they had a CD section with like, let's 30 CDs or something to browse through the current trends and music that was on the market that was just released, some singles, something. 5 or 6 soundtracks, but GoldenEye was one of them. And I just went there on a hunch, maybe because it's trending, they have it, and they did. But we did not have these big superstores that we have today. Or actually, you go and buy it as an MP3, or you download an album on Amazon, something like that. You buy it digitally. We went out and we bought the physical stuff.
Exactly.
And that was so fantastic, and that it survived because now I'm in the north of Germany, so I made a lot of moves. But coming back to the Overture, when you sent it to me, it really sounded like the one that is on the CD, until there are subtle changes in it. First, they are very subtle, and then you go into the reimagined part. There are added instruments, there are added nuances, and of course, we'd be happy to hear from you in the comments or now in the chat. What you hear, what differences you can hear. We're going to play it for you and stop babbling for a moment to let you, as an anniversary treat, enjoy the track in full. It's not that long. How long is it?
I think close to 3 minutes or something.
Close to 3 minutes? That's okay. I just hope that YouTube does not recognize it as the original track. It is really that close. Did you try before? Did you upload it and try?
No, I did not. Let's just try. Let's just go with it.
Well, if you can't see this video, obviously you can't hear me say that. But if you can see it, it went through all right. So let's hear the GoldenEye Overture, reimagined by Yannick Zenhäusern in 2025. Enjoy. What an anniversary treat that is. A lot of memories come up when I listen to that, but at the same time, I'm really, really busy listening to all the new stuff you put in there. Can you take us through the process? How do you create a track like that? Where do you get the right instruments from to make it sound like from the album? And what is new in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I did is, especially in the first part or the first minute, let's say, I wanted it to be exactly like the original. So I had to compare it all the time. I had to write a couple of bars or one bar and then listen, where is this shh, shh, or the ice missile, the sound, or where does this choir shout come in and stuff. So it's really accurate to the original. That was one thing. one thing I said in another place is that the movie version that's put in is slightly different to what you have on the soundtrack. Some instruments are placed a couple of beats differently than they are on the soundtrack album. So, but I went with the soundtrack version, and so the sounds, most of the sounds, and that's something that I really love to say, come from the original synthesizers. So the timpani sound comes from an EMU synthesizer, the ice missile as well. Most of the percussive sound effects, the drum loop. This is from a sample CD I tracked down called Loopzilla from the 90s. That is one track somewhere in one of the tracks. It's hidden away. I cut that out and put it to adjusted it to the tempo and everything that I have. And so, yeah, that's basically how it came together. Some sounds had to be a bit improvised because I still can't track down every single sound. Like in the second part of the GoldenEye Overture, where it ramps up a little bit, and you have this kind of, I don't know if there's sticks or whatever, but it's this. Don't know what that is. Just was like, again, spent weeks and weeks trying to find a sound somewhere in my library that sounds remotely similar. I'm not absolutely happy with that, but it's close enough. And that one comes in additionally is the thought was, well, I have a lot of these 90 sample CDs with drum loops and stuff. What if you would have used different drum loops in some places, maybe a bit more accentuated drum loops, a little bit of orchestra? I mean, in the GoldenEye Overture, there's almost no orchestra, with the exception of the very final bits where he dives down and then you hear the strings, of course. But what if it was more in a David Arnold's kind of style with a little more brass and strings, but not too much so it doesn't cover up everything else of all the electronics, and a little bit of more modern synthesizers like loop synthesizers that do all sorts of bleeps and bloops and electronic and stuff like that. That was just something that accentuated the beat and this cool spy melody a little more.
It's a great piece of music that you did there.
Thanks.
As a reimagination. And you said loops came from a CD that you found. So
Right.
Serras took the same loops.
Yeah.
So, and we always bash Hans Zimmer over the head for basically being just a sample arranger and not so much a composer, although he has done some things, but modern soundtracks are basically made up of samples. So would you say Serras composed the GoldenEye soundtrack, or just half composed, or put it together? How would you rate that?
It's a very good question. First of all, I would make a distinction between my problem that I have with Hans Zimmer is not that he uses samples. I mean, that's been done all the time. It's more like that, and maybe that's not even his choice. It's also the director's, because if you pay so much to get a Hans Zimmer and that famous name, you maybe want the soundtrack to be in people's faces all the time. To me, I love more traditional sense of scoring. The score is more like accompanying the movie. It's not meant to be a main actor, and that's always with Hans Zimmer movies, especially in the 90s and also up until today. It's just always so in your face and so loud and so obnoxious that I just think, well, there's no subtlety about it. There's no nuance. There's no fine feeling of any kind. That's the biggest gripe that I have. Another gripe is that he has a whole studio of composers, almost all-known composers, and most of them come up with melodies and stuff, and he just takes them and maybe sometimes writes a little bit of it or some themes, but his name is always big on the scores, and the guys who actually wrote it is somewhere hidden, very small. But anyway, it is a good question. Of course, throughout the years, researching this Eric Serra GoldenEye score, I got more and more surprised because, of course, growing up, I always thought that he did so many of his own sounds. Every drum sound made it his own, and then when you gradually discover how much he took from sample CDs and synthesizers and so on, But still, you have to imagine there are hundreds and hundreds of sample CDs out there, hundreds of synthesizers. You still have to find the right bits and pieces. You have to find the right gear. You have to find from 600 sounds on one synthesizer. You have to find those sounds that stick out, and then they all have to match together. And you still have to compose like the Severnaya theme or the theme in Cuba. And the Bond theme exists, of course, but he didn't use it that much. And you still have to put everything together. So there's still a considerable amount of work that has to be done, a lot of thought and intuition that has to go in there. So I would still give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I said before, the score perfectly reflects the post-Cold War atmosphere of the film as a whole score, I would say, including the car chase music that I don't like, because it reflects these themes of uncertainty and technology rising and a shift away from the old world, which, if you transpose it, also includes everything that has been done before in the Bond films, musically as well. And speaking of loudness, as you said, and that's very well put, the music is not a character or an actor in a film. It should be in the background. It should support the film and the story that it tells. So there was this one time you told me that there was a discrepancy between Serra and the producers because of the music versus the sound effect loudness.
Exactly.
Can you tell me that again? Because I will tell it in the wrong way.
Yeah,
as I usually do.
Well, I can do that with a certain amount of confidence because I'm such a massive Eric Serra fan and geek. Of course, everything that you can find that includes him, especially interviews, I devour really. So, and there's not much out there. There's not many interviews where he specifically talks about GoldenEye. Usually these days it's about the Deep Blue or the last things that he did. And by the way, I think it's a little bit of a pity that he kind of lost this magic sound that he had back. Of course, you can't do the 90s all over and over again. Well, I can, but who am I? But yeah, back to your question. Yeah, it was right. He in the very same interview I've referenced 2 times now, he told this story that he was in, I think, the cinema in the premiere, and he, of course, saw the film and everything, the final mix and so on, and he told Michael J. Wilson that he was not happy with how it was mixed, meaning that, and I agree with that. Some people call, for instance, the GoldenEye Overture like elevator ride music. I totally disagree because the sounds that are in there, like I said before, are very well selected and they establish such a nice rhythm and so on. And if you watch it in the movie, it's true. You can barely hear what's going on in the Overture. You can mainly hear the timpani, the dum 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 dum. You can hear that sticking out a bit. But a lot gets swallowed by like ambient noise, by sound effects and so on. And he reportedly, or he said himself, that he went to Michael J. Wilson after the movie, after screening, and basically told him, well, I'm not happy with the mix. To which Michael J. Wilson told him, well, look, you're in the #1 movie in the world and you're still not happy. And he said, it's not that I'm not happy. Of course, I love it and it's great. But I put so much thought and work into my music, into arranging every tiny little bit, and it's so quiet in the movie that you can barely hear what's going on, and that's what I'm not happy with that artistic vision. And then there's another funny story, maybe you were also alluding to that one, is the tank chase music, where, and that's true, Eric Serra made this track. Exactly. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. Which had a lot of organ and deep sounds and sounds that all sit in the mid-range and low range, not a lot of like brass and high strings that cut through a mix with a lot of bang and boom like in the tank chase. And Serra, I think, also told that story that oh no, it was the director himself. He told that story exactly. It was Campbell, right? That he called him and told him, well, we have a serious problem. And I mean, it's again, he told this story as well, that a lot of the people of the crew of GoldenEye, they were really dissatisfied with the original version of Tank Chase, because it was something like you described. It was alien. It had like weird Oriental singing and organ, and it's a really weird piece. Again, it's a piece that I love to listen to in isolation, but it doesn't hold a candle against, it doesn't hold the torch against the John Altman version, the symphonic version that wound up in the movie. And then he called Eric Serra and told him, we have a problem. Your mid to low music, it gets swallowed by all the sound effects and stuff. And Eric Serra just said, well, lower the sound effects. I mean, imagine those guts that you're going to have to tell a director, well, lower the sound effects.
Yes.
Problem solved.
Yeah. And we know how Martin Campbell is.
Yeah, it makes it even funnier. Right?
Yeah, I don't want to know what happened afterwards.
Oh yeah. God, fucking
get out of my verb. Probably, yeah. Who does he think he is?
All right.
Yeah. But speaking about the Tank Chase, St. Petersburg, of course, I was surprised when I bought the album and it's track number 10 called A Pleasant Drive in St. Petersburg, and it was nothing like what was in the film. Obviously, I realized that back in 1996, and I really have trouble listening to that now. It's just so weird, and I tried to merge it with the Image ones, I know, and it just doesn't work. Why do you think that was done? Why did they get John Altman in?
Well, again, that's a little mixture of what I heard John Altman tell and what Eric Serra told, what Martin Campbell told, and it's funny. I mean, there are videos out there on YouTube where they actually put the Eric Serra version of the Tank Chase underneath the picture, and you can actually see that again he did a good job with like hitting spots and. When he slams the brake in the tank, the music goes stops and then picks up again. So you can see it fits, but it's an acquired taste. I agree. And reportedly, or I don't remember which version John Altman told and which Martin Campbell told, but apparently what went on is that they were not happy, and also some of the crew allegedly said that if that track stays in the movie, they don't want to be in the credits for GoldenEye because they hated it so much. And then
quite harsh move.
That's quite a statement, yes. But again, I think a lot of those crew members, they were long time Bond aficionados or Bond crew members. Yep. So I think also they had a certain amount of saying certain things and had a certain amount of authority, of course. And apparently then they called Eric Serra and said, well, we need you to change that, to make another version of it. And he flat out refused. I mean, again, now being a little bit older and so on, I think he said that, of course, he was riding high back then, and he when people told him what to do, him also coming from a collaboration with Luc Besson, who reportedly just let him do what he wanted. He took whatever Eric Serra wrote, put in his movie, no discussions. Yep. But he gave him clear directions, which was something that the Bond producers didn't do. They just told Eric Serra, well, wing it, clean slate, just go with it, do what you think is okay. It's what he did, so I understand that situation. But then again, I think it's a little arrogant because in scoring, it's usual that you have to rewrite certain things. And again, then he apparently flat out refused. And that's when they called John Altman, who was the orchestrator, who did the orchestral parts for the GoldenEye score. And they told him, well, we have this tank chase scene. You have like 4 or 5 days, including recording and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that was very, very close to the actual movie release. So I think he told that he had to write it in 2 or 3 days over a weekend, I think. Then they had to record it in 1 or 2 days, and then it had to be sent and mixed, and that was it.
Yeah. So it says a lot about the studio's lack of confidence for Serra's sound to keep it in there. What is your personal preference? Serra's version or John Altman's version?
No. It's a John Altman version. I mean, again, it's to me, but maybe that's my ears. It's a little bit weird to have this GoldenEye sound all throughout the movie, and then this in this absolute highlight of the movie, you have something that's a complete departure for that. It's a little misplaced for my taste, but of course it's way better because it's true. On one side, the original version gets completely swallowed, and it's too out there. I mean, you told this, and it's a great description that this alien sound of the GoldenEye score, and I think it also has to do with, of course. Bond is more a Western thing. It's more listened in, or it's a movie franchise that's consumed in Europe, in the USA, Great Britain, and so on mainly. So a lot of people have not been to the Soviet Union. So by default, it's already something a little bit alien because you don't know it. You maybe have seen pictures or seen news coverage, or you've seen movies, and it's always this kind of weird planet that's always gray and drab and snowy. So that makes perfect sense. Yeah,
I also prefer the Altman version, and especially listening to it without the film and without the sound effects. And it was only a couple of years ago. It was released on, I think, on John Altman's website and on some music SoundCloud. Yeah, not the whole thing. There was something
only
missing.
Yeah, exactly.
But just this part and hearing it unfiltered without the film, it's just such a wonderful and bombastic track. When in the end it goes dan 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 dan. It's just such, it packs such a punch, and I agree with you that it feels misplaced within the whole musical score when you watch the film, because this is an orchestral thing, and it feels like exactly what they felt putting it in there, bringing back a little bit of the classic Bond sound, not to offend all of the cinema goers at once across the globe. But ultimately, I think it was the better track and the best decision they could have done. And I accept it nowadays of being different, because I saw the version with the music that is on the album, and I like that even less. So it's the better thing. Where in contrast, when we go back to the beginning, and we were speaking about the Overture, and the music, I mean, 6 years there was no Bond. Suddenly Bond is back, and you would expect something big when the bungee jump happens. It's something like Bond theme, and Serras, it totally restrains this. It's very unusually restrained, and the music even stops at that point. And you just hear the ambient noise. You hear almost the wind that passes by his ears when he's bungee jumping down. Do you think Serras intentionally avoided this bombastic version of the opening?
Yeah, I think so. I could think of two reasons. First of all, and that's exactly the distinction I would make is if you had Eric's Hans Zimmer score that part of the movie, it would have been already, brass and strings and everything flying all over the place and all of that. But Eric Serra actually does this nuanced thing. And if you listen to the dam music, when the camera pans over the dam and you see Bond running, you don't really know it's Bond. But you just have a little bit of sleigh bells, triangle, which is like the go-to spy kind of... it always evokes this spy kind of feel if you have triangles in there. And just again a bit of deep sounds and no big strings and stuff like that. Only one pedal note that goes through, and then he stops that. And I think that is very nuanced scoring. And just something that I wanted to say in that context as well. Going back to the tank chase music, it's such a pity that Altman and Eric Serra at that point weren't really collaborating, and that's what I always wondered. It's great to have this orchestral thing, but why, if they would have collaborated, then Altman could have written this great symphonic part and maybe have a little bit of Eric Serra's instrument or color palettes underneath that. I mean, it wouldn't have hurt anyone, and so that's a little bit of a shame. And of course. Also, we have that version nowadays where you can listen to the full thing, but it was recorded by, the only thing that you can find is by is it the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra?
Yeah.
And I think it's very important because you said it's such a bombastic thing if you listen to John Altman's version, because it was recorded in a tinier space. So the brass is really, it screams in your ear, the percussion really hits. And the Philharmonic version is very well recreated, it's very well done. But you can hear that it's in a much bigger space, everything is a little more wider and a little bit more, it loses a little bit of its punch that the original has. And so I still hope we get the original version somewhere. But sorry, I digress. I wanted to say, I two reasons. The second reason for not doing more in the Dam scene is that in theory you don't know it's Bond. You first see him, well, maybe bit the eyes, but then he already jumped. And then the real introduction is in the toilet. So it would sort of make sense not to make a big thing out of it in that part that you referenced. And I mean, that silence with, like you said, the wind and everything, with the build-up when the camera goes over his head, that's a great build-up, and then just the wind. It's much more impactful than anything you could have written with music, because, and that's something that a lot of composers don't get, is that the pauses are as important as the music itself.
Yeah. And more importantly, silence.
Right.
It is very, very, very underrated. But if I can make a comparison here with Hitchcock, who was, of course, we don't need to speak about that. He was a masterful visionary filmmaker and used these tools to his advantage. Composers and the use of sound and sound effects and soundscapes. And when you are familiar with North by Northwest, there is a scene in there that plays out in the desert, and a bus takes Cary Grant there in the middle, and he's let out. There's no bus stop or anything. He's supposed to wait for somebody, and there is a whole 3 or 4 minute sequence where he's just standing there looking for the contact he is supposed to meet, and there is nothing. There is no music. It is just silence. And the occasional ambience, wind sound or leaves that are taken by the wind, something like that, a car passing by, but there is absolutely no music, and it adds so much to the tension of that scene.
Exactly.
Because you feel like this character, he's supposed to meet somebody he doesn't know how that person looks like, where he's coming from, and what happens next. And we know at the dam that he's going to bungee jump. I mean, it could have been a suicide, but it didn't look like that. And when he lets go of these whatever strings that he's attached to the dam, perfect sense. The silence makes perfect sense.
Right.
That's no way to build a sentence.
No, but
okay.
Yeah.
No, it's late.
The point comes across, and I can think of many film scenes that deliver exactly that, and it's sometimes also in submarine movies where you have like a lot of noise and stuff going on, and all of a sudden you hear one of the boats of the crew, you hear one saying, "There's a submarine nearby," and then it's just silence, and you just hear a radar somewhere.
Yeah,
you can't add more tension with music to that.
It's true. And a lot of films are over musicized. No, you can't say that. But they have music in places where you think, that would have been better without.
Exactly. And another good example in GoldenEye of absence of music is the Tiger helicopter, because first, you just see them waking up and you don't really know what's going on. I mean, you could have put all sorts of music in there. You could have put some, to underline the kind of dizziness and everything. You could have done some weird music and stuff, but no, it's silence. And then you, of course, start screaming and so on. And the music starts then when the helicopter starts to act or activates itself. Absolutely. And again, it's brilliant.
Yeah. So in that regard, what would you say? Is Serras' soundtrack as a whole unfairly judged?
I kind of love the status that it has, this famous Marmite, you either love it or hate it. because
Good
to me, it's the same like with people. I much prefer people who have certain character and edge to them, and you either like them or you don't, as just this like all these soundtracks nowadays, most of them, they're so replaceable. I mean, you could take one soundtrack out of a movie, put it in another, and vice versa, and you couldn't tell because they're all this muddled BS. It's just no real melodies, no real compositions. It's just noise and stuff that goes on, and I think and again, I have sympathy for people who come from the traditional Bond world where you have this orchestral packed score and everything. So I can sympathize with both sides. Yeah. What about you?
I think as a whole, when you see it in the context of the film's plot and themes, I think it is unfairly judged, because it, as we established, it adds a lot to certain scenes, while in others it leaves a lot to be desired. Whereas in the tank chase, that was replaced by John Altman. So what I did not want to hear was replaced. So that's good. If they think the music Serra had in mind wasn't good, then why would the audience? But the stronger question is, for me, would the reception of the score have been different if John Barry had not delivered such a strong template before? What if more composers other than John Barry would have had an influence on the Bond series? And I mean, we've had others. We had Marvin Hamlish and whatnot. What if there would have been like 10 composers? Would it have been different?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. You have Marvin Hamlish, you have Bill Conti, of course, who brought his rocky sound into making a Bond score, but still, it was somewhat. It had strings, it had brass, and those are the cornerstones of a Bond score. And it was still very disco. Same goes with Hamlish, but still there was a fair amount of the tradition in there. And it's Eric Serra who, like you said, broke it all, because, again, going back to the Overture, the Bond dum was played with a timpani. Like that alone is such creative insanity. But I love it, of course. But it's and the absence of orchestral instruments already in the very beginning of the movie. But I still find it weird then that the GoldenEye gun barrel is revered by many people. Many people, even who are not particularly fans of GoldenEye or the GoldenEye score, say that's the best sounding gun barrel music. And I mean, David Arnold said this once, that you get like 10 seconds and you can either sell yourself or not. And selling something good in 10 seconds, that's really an achievement.
I prefer the others, to be honest. I prefer the other gun barrels that David Arnold did until it went fully electronic and The World Is Not Enough, and obviously Die Another Day.
Yeah, that was too much.
But Tomorrow Never Dies, that is sort of my go-to gun barrel.
That's a great one.
If you ask me for David Arnold's music, the older ones, I would have to see them again, but Moonraker had a great gun barrel. But the sound mix was totally different then. But I think, I mean, a lot of people complain about Marvin Hamlish and The Spy Who Loved Me adding lots of nuances from disco, as you said. Just the ski chase track, I mean, pure disco. But he sort of made up for that by creating this famous title song, Nobody Does It Better. They sort of forgave him for that. They forgave him for everything else that he might have messed up in the soundtrack, but it was a great tune. And Bill Conti, I love Bill Conti. I'm a big fan of Bill Conti. And he did a lot of television music that I listened to. And he also recorded Remington Steele, the theme music of Remington Steele, which was Pierce Brosnan's basically entry ticket to 007. But he was tied down with Remington Steele in a contract, so they couldn't take him earlier for The Living Daylights. But we listened to Bill Conti in the car when I visited you once, and we had such fun with that, and it was as quirky as Roger Moore's Bond, but somehow I love that. I love the track when the helicopter comes up, and and Bill Conti can do full orchestration. I mean, he's used to that. He's an orchestra leader, an orchestra conductor, and somehow it still fits. And it's like 50-50. There are other parts of the soundtrack where he did things really well, like For Your Eyes Only in the slow parts, romantic stuff, and there's a lot of that in there. There's Cortina, and you know how much I love winter locations, and how they are scored is very important to me, and he did a brilliant job with that. But I don't have that feeling with Serras' score, although I always hear something new. But overall, I'm probably one of them who judges it unfairly.
No, I mean, you go by your sentiment, and that's you don't have to excuse that. I think the big difference from Eric Serra to all other Bond scores is every Bond score, be it David Arnold, John Barry, of course, be it, like you said, Marvin Hamlish, Bill Conti, they all have a certain grandeur, certain style. You used the word swagger at the beginning. They all have a certain noble quality to them, bigger than life quality. While as Eric Serra probably is the only score, Eric Serra's GoldenEye score is the only score that's just gritty, dirty. It pulls you down. It's drab. It's bleak, but it perfectly fits in the movie. I often said this. Someone asked me once, well, what about if David Arnold had scored GoldenEye? No, I wouldn't have wanted that. But then again, I can't imagine Eric Serra having scored Tomorrow Never Dies, or much less the other movies. But I stand by that. Most Bond scores sound big, lush, exotic partially, a reflection of their time, but they still had style and so on. And Eric Serra's GoldenEye score is just pure grit and dirt in the best way possible for me.
Yes, absolutely. Let's take one theme of the film, the geopolitical situation, the geopolitical landscape. Soviet Union is gone. Chaos, corruption, technology on the rise, ideologies uncertain. There are new threats. How is that reflected in Serra's music? What would you say? Or where does he do that really well? I got you with that one. 3 clicks.
You really make me speechless with the GoldenEye soundtrack Eric Serra question. I never would have thought this day would come.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, just going by instinct, I would say weirdly enough, well, the obvious thing would be the GoldenEye Overture, but weirdly enough, and again, those are just my instincts pointing to that, is the St. Petersburg tune, when he lands in St. Petersburg. It's the short tune, and I don't know why, but that track somehow perfectly sums up that feeling of landing in Russia, in a foreign territory that has a certain, or evokes certain pictures in our Western heads. And I don't know why. It's these low claps and the sleigh bells that, of course, fit perfectly with the snow location and so on. And a certain amount of, it has coolness, but at the same time, it still has a bit of uncertainty, and it still has a bit of a almost sad tone to it. And that's the track I would say, embodies that for me. Does that make sense?
It does. And I just thought of a scene from another film where I could compare it to, another Bond film I could compare it to, the point I want to make. Scoring for a new geopolitical landscape after one system collapsed is hard enough. But I would not necessarily have thought of this track, but I thought more of the soundtrack in a whole and the nuances that it has. And a lot of Serras music that he did for GoldenEye feels unstable. It is modern, we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah.
But it has a certain anarchy to it.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's there for a reason, because when you, and this is the comparison, when you take the music of Octopussy, which had a Cold War plot, there was this general, you remember this big room with the rotating chairs and table and this huge, gigantic map on the wall, and Steven Berkoff as General Orlov speaking and screaming. When you think of the music of that film, it had the music of East versus West had a certain grandeur because, of course, it was again John Barry who did the template. But when you contrast that with Serras' score, it sounded like a world hacked together with lots of pieces after collapsing.
And now
I think that is what the soundtrack does really well.
And now let me come at you with another, and that's a great point you make, and it's a great observation. That's why I don't get why you consider yourself a music layman. But you always have to think about the context and where composers come from. And that's something I've talked about once, but it is an important point in this context. If you listen to John Williams, for instance, and I know you love your Jurassic Park, you love, well, you don't love Star Wars, but
no, but I like it.
Okay. And certainly the John Williams scores are always great, but he comes from a jazz background, and jazz is very disjointed. It's there's a lot of experimentation, and if you listen to John Williams scores, they're very, in the best way. He's a master at that. I can't do it because I come from a different school, if you will. But they're so disjointed, and then there's brass doing this and that second, and then they're doing the other second completely something else, and then the strings do weird movements. It's very, very out there. It's not. You can't grasp it really. Eric Serra, I think, is a jazzer as well, because nowadays, if you listen to his renditions of the GoldenEye, it's
like
really
7 minutes long. Yeah,
exactly 7 minutes of a Bond theme, but it's so jazzy, and so that's what allowed that kind of crazy thinking allowed him to come up with sounds and putting together weird sounds that still make sense. And like you say, or another track like Run, Shoot, and Jump, the whole timing, if you try to recreate that track, it's such weird timing, and the instruments you can't really recreate it because it's so weird. And then the instrumentation on the track, Xenia, I think it's called. There are different soundtracks out there. So the one where in the frigate, it's dum 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 dum. We have this upright bass. It's really weird instruments put together. That's Eric Serra again, coming from a very creative, jazzy background. Let's take John Barry as a comparison that you just made. John Barry comes from a rock and roll background. Rock and roll is very straightforward, usually very clearly defined chords, very clear structures, and that's the way he scores. I mean, he is really, that's why he has this sweeping and pleasant to listen to, long drawn compositions. If you take, for instance, the gondola chase in Moonraker, everything is rigidly placed. It's very solid. It all sticks together like glue. You don't have these jumpy things here and there that David Arnold also does in his scores. It's very stringent.
Yeah,
and that's the difference between what the musical background of a composer comes in. And I have the same thing. I started with blues and rock and roll and stuff like that. So also I can only write very stringent and I can't do these jumpy and everything here happened, bang, bang, this, that. It's always very, very clearly structured. And that, I think, also attributes to the fact how the GoldenEye score turned out in that manner, in terms of instrumentation and in terms of compositions.
Yeah. Another example is, for me, when you think of the moment that a lot of Bond fans who were familiar with the Bond series saw that film in the cinema, GoldenEye, they were, of course, hugely hyped that a new Bond film finally came after this 6-year hiatus. We were first timers. I was a first timer, so I didn't know. I can't put myself into that equation. But those who were familiar with Bond, who saw the film and afterwards complained about the soundtrack, I call it the fear component.
Mm-hmm.
What would you make of that? Yeah, that's the question for you. What do you think? I mean, you know me well enough.
I can think, what crosses my mind now is that I can think that many people didn't really know what to make out of that soundtrack, even back in the day. And my example is, or my point is this: in a lot of promotion material and so on, you hardly ever heard what Eric Serra had composed. You mostly heard, and by the way, all throughout the 90s, I mean, this stuff, even in Die Another Day, was still used from some of the promo material, was the tune that was written by Parody Fair, I think.
Yes.
Star Parody and Fair. That's it was mostly used. So I think even promoters, fans, people who somewhere were involved in Bond, that's where the fear comes in, because what is this? I can't use the GoldenEye Overture to cut together a trailer, so. And if you think about it, maybe with the possible exception of the John Altman score, of course, the tank chase, and maybe Run, Shoot, and Jump, there are not many tracks in the soundtrack that you can think of to be used as promotional music, as it were, because it's slow burning, it's atmospheric, but it's not something bombastic that you can put in a trailer or in any sort of anything else than the movie and the scenes that they were intended for. And another point that I try to make is, as much as I love the GoldenEye score, and I wouldn't have it any other way, but sometimes what baffles me a bit is how minimalistic the whole end bit on the antenna was done. Of course, you have the Run, Shoot, and Jump, but that's a couple of seconds, a couple of times. But then at the very end, it's just a bit of triangle. It's like this weird sound, and there's really like nothing much going on. Of course, also the music when the antenna turns with the brass and so on. But at the very end, where they have this fight and stuff, and when Trevelyan flies down over the platform, there's just this one sound effect that he uses in Run, Shoot, and Jump to, very low, and I just ask myself, is that the big bombastic ending of the score?
Again, operatic finish.
Yeah, right.
What I give you the breakdown of what I call the fear component.
Okay.
When I put myself in the position of a long-time Bond fan, seeing GoldenEye in 1995 or 1996 when it came out in December 1995, and I heard that music and I felt alienated. But I can accept the overture, but then comes the car chase, and I think, what the hell am I watching? What is this? Who got this composer? You feel alienated, and you fear automatically, what if they let him make a second one? What if this is the new musical sound of Bond? There are a lot of people who say, if that happens, I will not go to see another Bond film. I mean, you yourself said, if there's another Bond film with Daniel Craig, if there's any Bond film with Daniel Craig, I will not go and see it.
No, I'm out.
These are your own words.
Yep.
And there are a lot of people who are, who would say, if this is the new Bond, I'm not happy with it. Musically, thematically, or they don't like the actor. I would say, okay, that's it. I like the other ones. There are a lot of other ones to watch. You can say it now at the same time. If you don't like the new actor for the 26th Bond film, you can say, well, I have 25 others that I can watch. Yeah, absolutely no problem.
Right.
So, but when you saw that in 1995 or 1996, like I did, and you thought, this music is so off, there is already the fear, and this is early in the beginning of the film. Will it stay like this for the whole film? Do I leave? But then, if you turn it around and you ask yourself, Why and what kind of fear is this music evoking, and why is it there, and why does it do that? Think of GoldenEye itself. The satellite in space.
Yeah.
It is not the traditional Cold War weapon. We established that in the first episode. It is not a nuke. It is not a rocket. It is not a missile. It is a satellite EMP weapon triggered by a computer, of which a lot of people in the 1990s were still afraid of. The rise of computers and the rise of technology. And then you have Boris Grushenko, obviously, who embodies the geeky hacker, and Natalia Semyonova, who's a computer programmer. All these characters, they threw the audience into a world of, hey, computers are bad and you can do bad things with it. You can launch an EMP weapon and destabilize the whole world. And Serras' use of percussion and synthesizer and this digital effects, it mirrors, or it makes you fear this technological threat even more. And that's what I call the fear component.
That's
and
great,
it works with me. And when you think about there are so many, I don't even know where to start, but these eerie choir voices from afar, in the shadows, and when there is a reveal, and when Trevelyan comes out of the shadow, you think of, well, where the hell is this coming from? And that's sort of like an old man with a white beard singing, and we always make fun of it. That's Hörst du deine Hand? It's totally German. Yeah. Do you hear your hand? That's what I heard on the soundtrack, and I thought, why do they have an old man recording? Do you hear your hand? And then sort of they made an echo under it. Of course, that's not what they sing. Either it is fantasy language, or it's Russian. So, but it's eerie.
No,
it's haunting.
It's definitely not Russian. Mm-hmm.
It's very, very haunting, and it makes you fear everything that the film shows. The mirror effect between Bond and Trevelyan, the shadows, the statue park, which is basically an analogy for the crumbling of the Soviet Union. All these statues that nobody needs anymore.
I'm deeply impressed.
Why?
Yeah, because of what you just said. That's a great point.
That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
It's a very good analysis.
Yeah,
but I was not.
I don't know where it's coming from. It's too much coffee.
It's great. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But there's one point I want to get back to. You talked about this fear.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, it was a great explanation, and again, you introduce yourself as a musical noob, but excuse me.
I'd like to put myself down. That's what I do. I don't.
Yes, that's true.
I shouldn't.
That's true.
Personal advice: you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, but it's fun.
That's true.
For the others around, at least.
It's true, yeah.
But you brought in a very interesting point, and I want to challenge you a bit on that. You said that there was the fear back then that, like you say, every movie from now on will be like this. Maybe even with Eric Serra coming on board again for a couple of other movies. I can understand that point, but. Back in those days, every single James Bond movie was different in style, in appearance. Some were like you had the gory one, and then you had the exotic one, then you had the one in Thailand, and so on. So every Bond film was encapsulated in his own. GoldenEye, I think, putting myself back in the 90s, I would have said, well, it's one way to do it. The next one would be completely different because. Nowadays you could make that point because the whole Daniel Craig era was one run, and they have connected these movies, which was the biggest mistake that you can do. So of course you would. That was my reason why after Casino Royale, I quit, because I knew, and I didn't see when they came out. I watched them in a Bond box because I was bored at that time, and I thought, well, what the hell? Maybe I will still like it. And then I realized, of course, it's all one continuous thing. But you didn't have that back in that time.
It's true.
So
where?
Yeah, that's why I want. That's what I wanted to ask.
Okay, I thought that was a question.
Yeah, it is a question. Do you really think that was the fear back then in the 90s, that every Bond movie from now on would, or some of the following ones would be in the style of GoldenEye, like drab, dark, Soviet or Russian? Yeah, maybe.
Could have been.
Yeah, right.
Could have been. Yeah. Also part of the fear component. Yeah, but you have that with every new film. I'm pretty sure I already experience it, the fear component right now, because we have a lot of information about the new Bond film, Bond 26. What we're missing is an actor, but that's my fear component, what decision they're going to make. But I said this on another video on my channel, the Bond 26 Roundtable, with my friends from the Netherlands. Yeah, sometimes I arrive at these conclusions and I just say them. And I said, with every decision that is made in the wrong way, wrong in big, you know, because it's not our decision, it's just our feeling. But it takes away from the magic that I experienced growing up with Bond and loving the films that were standalone missions. And they all had the same feel to it, yet they were all different. So, absolutely. But you knew what to expect. And with Daniel Craig, with the third film, you knew what to expect. It's going to be an arc. And I didn't like that. I did not like the direction it was going. And now I'm caught in that fear component that with Denis Villeneuve, also a visionary filmmaker that we spoke a lot about, like Luc Besson also. But I know the kind of films that he makes, and I know they are very difficult and dark. So yes, we are at the same crossroads again. And I think I don't want a dark film. I don't want it. Our lives are so hectic and stressful, and I want to go to the cinema and just have fun. But I beg and hope that it's not just the next stupid, plotless Jurassic World that makes me forget the world for 2 hours. Because more and more I feel insulted by what comes from Hollywood in my intelligence, and they take my money for plotless films, letdowns basically of series that you like. Mission Impossible was like that, Jurassic World was like that. Ultimately, it's down to studio executives, the changing audience landscape that we have, the target audience and whatever. But because we all become stupid in the end through Instagram doom scrolling and social media and all of that, we basically have the attention span of a squirrel nowadays. Me not excluded. I mean, I live on the internet since that time where GoldenEye was released. I was one of the kids in school, the first ones who had a computer at home. And so I grew up with that, and I did not experience that as something bad. Quite the opposite. I loved computers. And I love, and back in the day, I was even able to take a computer apart, put it back together again, or put new parts in. So I was not afraid of technology. I never closed myself off, and I can help people who have problems with their phone, with their tablet, with their computers, because I grew up in that world. But still, for a lot of other people, the threat level was raised in the 90s significantly.
Yeah. That's true.
And these films reflected that quite well. And I think, just like we said in the last episode, cast and characters, there is this recurring mirror theme where Bond sees himself in Alec Trevelyan, because he, as an ex-MI6 agent and now a traitor, is trained the same way as Bond. And I think in GoldenEye the music works as a thematic mirror to everything that happens on screen. And you can break it down. I mean, Bond feels out of place in this new world, so the music feels out of place. That is probably the most important thing. You have to realize this is new, and something new is beginning. If they carry it to the next film, was probably a different question for audiences. But second one is the Cold War is over. and the music reflects that. All the big orchestrations are gone, and John Barry used a lot of romantic orchestrations, and he always took parts of the main theme, like All Time High or something like that, and incorporated that in his orchestrations of the score. All of that is gone with GoldenEye. There is not even there's not a single hint of the GoldenEye theme song that we're going to speak about in a minute that is in the score. Nothing.
No. And that's for a reason, yeah, right.
Yeah. And then you have the fear component. Technology is the new weapon. Technology taking over. It's reflected in the music. And ultimately, chaos replaces order. The Bond films before had order. They all have their recipe, like a good martini. Opening sequence, main title sequence, this and that. Bond and M, action sequence here. Girl, love interest, action sequence here, final act. But GoldenEye has the same structure. It does everything like in the cocktail recipe. But the score is basically chaos. But it's fragmented, experimental. And you have that feeling of unease in certain sequences, like I said, with the choir, the dark choir, and then sounds you can't really place, and either you like it or you hate it. Like Marmite, like you said, like Marmite. Best comparison ever. I hate it. Can't eat that shit.
I have never tried it.
Just let it stay like that.
No, I don't intend to. Yeah,
no,
I'm
don't.
fine without it.
Don't.
Yeah.
Don't.
No, I
It's
don't
not
think I
worth
would
it.
like it either. No, I don't think so.
Although I would love to see you try. But that's only because I'm such a mean-spirited character who likes to see people suffer.
Yeah, especially towards me. Yeah, right.
Yes, obviously, always. Otherwise, I would not pressure you to do 5 episodes of GoldenEye's 30th anniversary with 7-8 hours runtime in total.
No, but I have to say it was a lot of fun coming back from my Bond semi-retirement. Not that I have an official function, but it was fun coming back for this one. But after that, when we have wrapped up the GoldenEye 30th anniversary, I'm fine with putting Bond to rest again. No, because no, but you've alluded to it before, like. They have completely lost me as well. So they really have to do a lot of good to get me back in the cinema for that. But I have the feeling we're on the verge of a change, because I often watch these YouTube channels like The Critical Drinker and so on, and they have substantial amount of say where the industry heads a little bit, because they're influencers. They shape the opinions of people because there's such a massive reach. And of course, they share our sentiment that movies over the last 10, 15 years got progressively worse. The last 5 years were abysmal in terms of movies that came out of Hollywood. Like you said, brain dead, stupid stuff with filled to the brim with political messages, and then like 3 to 4 years ago, it started. Sometimes you had these little things like. Mission Impossible, like you had the God, the name escapes me. The one with Tom Cruise, the jet movies, the Top Gun. You had Top Gun 2. The Top Gun 2 that was just. It was action packed. It was no political message. It was just action, and that was an absolute massive success. And as opposed to the other movies who were filled with political messages, female this and that, and brain dead stuff, and they all lost tons of money. And they slowly start to realize now that they can't keep going like that. And Quentin Tarantino, I'm not a big fan of his movies, but I give him credits in 2 cases, that he was a massive Pierce Brosnan Bond fan. And that he tells it like it is. And he also said that there were, like, in cinema history, there were always decades that were miserable for cinema, and we're in the middle of such one, or towards the end of such one, because everything, it's so self-restricted, like I say, with everything has to have political message, like it has to put in certain things and certain people and so on. It's so restricting for filmmakers, and studios don't invest in like novel ideas anymore, like in cool little projects, like the mid-budget projects that were big in the 90s and beginning of 2000s. But I think we're coming back to that, because they see they lose tons of money and it just can't go on like that. The question, however, fear factor, can they actually pull people back? Because you, like you say, you have two elements that play into that. You have a very short attention span of nowadays society, and the younger generation does not grow up loving cinema the way we did.
True, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Same way. Everything's streaming. I mean, I stream a lot as well, and I regretted not seeing some films on the big screen. But I've made it my, what's the word missing now? But I only go to the cinema for films that I think I know what to expect, but that changed this year, definitely, drastically, which is Bond, Mission Impossible, and Jurassic Park. These were always the ones that I would go to the cinema for, no matter what.
Yep.
And now,
there you go.
I think 2 drop out. Mission Impossible is over anyway. It's finished. That was the last film, The Final Reckoning. And if they ever make a new Jurassic World or Jurassic Park, I will certainly think long and hard if I want to invest 15 euros going to the cinema for that after that shite.
Yeah, I understand.
Which is sad, because I love cinema. I'm the typical cinema goer. I don't necessarily like sitting there. I would love it for myself with no people, but since I most of the time go to the English screening and not the German one, they are packed when there is a new release, especially Jurassic World. I know it was sold out for the first 2 nights. They made a grave mistake, but the English original screenings that we have a lot of, thank God. 10, 15 years ago, it was not that much. I always say it's 7.1 surround, 7 people eating, and 1 sound source. That it distracts me, and I just can't focus on the screen. But in recent years, most of the screenings, it's students, and they really learned, or they have the ability to just stay quiet. When the film opens, suddenly it becomes very quiet. All the phones are off. It's great. German audience, a pure German audience, is totally different. It's really totally different.
And I mean, sometimes I feel bad for us. You know, I mean, we're such big film movie fans, and we love it, and we love to go to the cinema. But I don't know when I last had the impulse of going, because, like you said, most, or if not all, the famous long-running series that were destroyed, like you say, you mentioned Jurassic Park. I could go further. I could say Indiana Jones, Die Hard, Bonds, Mission Impossible. It all came crashing down. It's all because they didn't know when to stop. Nobody had the guts or had the vision. Star Wars as well has also been destroyed. That have the vision to invest in something that's new, that's not the same thing over and over again, only done badly. And that's why I feel bad for movie fans, because everything that we grew up with, that were still great in the 90s, that we loved, that we cherished, it's all gone. It's all been destroyed. And not in a good sense that it came to a natural conclusion and it was good at that. I mean, talking about Die Hard, for instance, I would say they could have done the 3rd one and that's okay, that was it. But then they did this, and Star Wars also, why couldn't they just leave it with the 6 original movies? They destroyed everything with the last, I don't know how many there were. And that's just so sad, because it takes you out of the experience. Same with Bond. I mean, to me, hopefully, if they go back to the old formula with just one encapsulated movie after the other, going back more to that famous Bond cocktail, which has to be in there for it to be like a Bond movie. When they go back to that and actually deliver on the actor, the music, the story, just let out all this drama, political nonsense, maybe then it would be great again, and then you can just think of the Craig era as a bad fever dream. But well, I'm not optimistic, to be honest.
Will we see Yannick step back into a cinema with the new Bond film? You will see it only here on this show. If he does.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to love Bond again, have the excitement.
And that's what I said. That's what I said. I want to feel this passion again for Bond.
Right.
And I want to make more videos, and I want to hype it, and I want to support the franchise, while at the same time keeping the legacy alive. But they make it so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And that what angers me inside. So the fear factor is completely there. I'm completely surrounded by it.
Yeah.
And it will probably stop the day when it opens in cinemas and I'm finally going to see it. And then I decide. And I know the feeling, how it is to come out of a film and be completely disappointed.
Oh, yeah.
Which was exactly my feeling after Quantum of Solace. That was the first Bond film where I came out, I had a raving headache, and I was massively disappointed. And I saw it with friends, and I had no desire discussing the film or discussing it over a drink. I had no desire of doing that. I just wanted to go home and watch one of the older ones.
That's grim. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so grim.
I really tried. And I give everything a chance. And I give the new Bond a chance. I give Denis Villeneuve a chance. It always sounds so great. Like it all matters on your opinion and decision. But for me personally, because I'm not ready to throw my Bond passion away. I'm not ready for that. I always give it another chance. It's like a relationship with somebody, and you always give it another chance until there's finally a divorce. But you push it away from you every single year. You see, let's see what happens next. And yes, now is the same time like before GoldenEye. There hadn't been a Bond for a couple of years. There will be a new actor. Nobody knows for certain who's going to be. I wasn't a fan back then, but there were other fans that are older than us that know the series. What did they feel? And I mean, they have a totally different feeling today. Some of them might love Denis Villeneuve. I had great comments on my channel of people who are a lot older than me who say, I love Villeneuve's films, and this will be a great, masterfully crafted spy action thriller. It might be. But I can tell you the day after.
But will you definitely go see it in the cinema?
Yes.
Okay.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Because I've always said, when there's Bond on the packet, I will buy it.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to see. I mean, I don't have to voice an opinion, but I feel like I'm part of the community and people would like to hear what I have to say. Not that it influences anyone, but even if I'm just talking to the camera, I can either let off steam or the opposite, excitement.
Yep.
And it's 50-50. Letting off my anger might make people not go to the cinema, and the opposite would make them go. I don't have that power, but still, it's what I like to. That's what I like to do. I watch a lot of reviews before I buy a new video game or whatever. I watch gameplay footage. I watch a video of people playing it, and if they're happy and satisfied with it, because a lot of what I see in those professional streamers who play a lot of video games, I trust them because I feel like there's a connection. They're the same like me, and I play a lot of video games. So, but I want to know before. I want to be safe because they are a lot more expensive than a cinema ticket.
Absolutely.
I was once asked if I would go into a Bond film without knowing anything about it, and I know some people do it. Some people try to stay clear of all information regarding a new Bond film, which is impossible in our modern world today. But I know some who tried with the last film, but we know how that turned out. So they probably were pleasantly surprised. But I admire that, really. But since the production of The World Is Not Enough, I collect every piece of production material, behind-the-scenes footage, trailers, everything, and I'm fully into the world of producing a Bond film until I finally see it in the cinema, and I was never really let down. And everything made sense when you saw it on screen, and it's for my own hypometer. But I will definitely go. Yeah, obviously, I will definitely go. Okay. I cannot put out videos like speaking about Villeneuve or criticizing the creative choices that are made, and then not go to the cinema and boycott it. It's useless. So, and I mean, I made a video about this game show, Road to a Million, and I said I didn't like the first season. I did not like it one bit. Did I watch the second one? Yeah. And maybe I have a totally different opinion. I won't say now. Now it would be safe to say, because I was in a podcast with the Bond Report. By the way, great channel. You should look at the Bond Report. Great videos that he puts out. Chris, great friend of mine from the US, and we did this episode on Road to a Million season 2, and not a spoiler person, so I won't tell you. Did I like it? You have to go to his channel and watch the video. Yeah, but finishing thought. We strayed so much from this topic again, but it's what we do. It's what we do. Maybe you like it, people. If not, well, you're probably gone. Can't change that. The theme tune, GoldenEye, that one, also 29 years old.
Yep.
Tina effing Turner. Could there have been a better? How high does it rank in your list?
Top. It's
number one.
It's the top. Yeah. It has to be already for anecdotal reasons, but even without the what GoldenEye generally means to me, it's because it has everything. It has excitement. It has also like the spy segments. It has the Bond theme in it, but not too much like Skyfall that just goes on and on and on with the Bond theme that it almost gets on your nerve. And I mean, you mentioned Nobody Does It Better before. It's such a beautiful, cute song. I love it. It has everything that I love in it. It has like gospel chords and everything. It's a great song. Is it a great Bond song? I'm not so sure.
But for most people, that's on number one. That's the number one Bond song for most people.
Which is weird for me to understand, because it's the least Bond song that I know. Because the tone and everything is so not Bond. It is, like I say, it's a beautiful song and has a lot of that. It has a lot of sentimentality in it. But it's as a Bond song, I don't know. But GoldenEye really, it has Bond coming out of every single pore that it has. That's true. And of course, we know these stories about that there was an alternate version of Ace of Base. And Eric Serra has also said that he also wrote a demo for a title song, but of course he never used. And then it was a little bit, it happened very quickly that Bono came in, and Bono brought on Tina Turner, and everything must have happened so fast that they did not really have the chance to collaborate. Hence why you can hear any hints of the GoldenEye title song elements in the score.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where would you rank it, the GoldenEye title track?
I mean, it would be too obvious to say number one. But I don't have another song on number one. I'm quite fond of Chris Cornell's "You Know My Name." I cannot exactly tell you why, because I'm not particularly fond of rock music all the time. Sometime, but more like classic rock. But it has this punch. But GoldenEye would be on number two. They would probably switch all the time. But
okay.
And I hate rankings. Let's start with that. Everybody knows, or people who watch my channel know, I hate rankings. Occasionally I rank some things, but unwillingly, because I hate this favoritism. I love all the songs, but I agree with your point on Nobody Does It Better. It's almost like a love song. It does not have that Bondian thing to it. It's more the lyrics. Nobody does it better, brackets, than Bond. That's why a lot of people place it so high. But I remember GoldenEye in the cinema. I knew the song came out really strong and it made an impression on me. But basically, because you have the time, you are given this type during the main title sequence, which was brilliantly done by Daniel Kleinman, who started to have a great career with Bond, especially designing the title sequences. And while reading all the names, you were given that time to appreciate the song and the lyrics and everything. And I learned English from when I was very young, so I could understand the lyrics perfectly in the cinema as a 14-year-old boy. And then listening to it on the single release, and then again on the album, I know it was back then you had a Discman or even a Walkman.
Sure.
I don't remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I was listening to it constantly. And now going through the years, when you listen to... I need a lot of orchestra stuff for singing. And I did an album with the Bond songs. It sounds rubbish. Don't go out and get it. Because first of all, I think they burned all copies. But... there is no orchestra that covers this song that make the opening bars sound right.
No,
they don't sound right. And the question is, why is it impossible? Why was it so perfectly done? So masterfully that you can't recreate it. You could recreate and reimagine the GoldenEye Overture, but no orchestra in the world can do the opening bars of GoldenEye. It always sounds wrong.
Yeah. Exactly, because you just need the GoldenEye title track is so heavily reliant on the electronic parts again. Like you said, boom, 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 boom. Those synthesized pizzicato strings. That's the first thing, and of course you can have an orchestra play the pizzicato part, but it won't sound right because you got the hole and the reverb, and it's not electronical. It's also something that I saw people write or comment about the Overture. The GoldenEye Overture, is that why did he use these cheaply synthesized timpani sounds? But that's exactly what gave it the character. They were not natural, realistic sounds. Same goes for the GoldenEye title track. Then you have this really low, boomy, and really in the mix fat drum sound that's also very lo-fi. You can't recreate that with a drum set in an orchestral stage. It's impossible. It doesn't sound right. And no matter how many microphones or whatever sort of processing you do with it, if it's not digital, you won't get that fat and full and smooth sound that the GoldenEye, the title track has. So unless you would do sort of a hybrid thing where you would have a couple of synths and perhaps the drum loop fed into a computer, and you have just parts of the orchestra playing over it, you will never have a satisfying version of that. And also the strings and everything, they're not on the recording, they don't sound like orchestral instruments. They're more like they don't have a lot of hall and reverb. They're quite tight in the mix. Everything is very clean and clear and crisp, and you cannot get that from an orchestral setting, because an orchestral hall has a lot of reverb. A lot of the sound gets lost in the mud of the hole in the space. So I understand, and I agree with that. I've never seen a live version of GoldenEye that flies. Absolutely.
No, not even with Tina Turner's concerts. When there is a very, very good version. I think it's from 2009, where she was in the Netherlands. The one concert that was on DVD. It's available in very bad quality. So I can't put the clip inside here, obviously because of copyright. But it had a whole show around it, and there were a lot of dances, and it was very, very Bond themed. A lot of thought went into that, and this was a brilliant live thing. But it was more for the show. It was not so much for. Of course for the song, but the show surrounding it was really, really great. But here is a little clip that I really like. It's from the premiere night of GoldenEye in London, where of course Tina Turner was a guest, and she had this little thing to say about making GoldenEye.
we received about 10 songs actually for me to listen to and approve. Actually, so because if the song hadn't been right, I wouldn't have taken it.
And was the one written by Bono and the Edge? I mean, the GoldenEye theme song. Was that your outright favourite, or were you torn a little bit?
No, that was it, because it sounded right. It sounded like, let's say, a theme for a movie. I mean, some of the songs were just a good song, but it wasn't appropriate for a movie, I thought, and I just didn't want to take it otherwise.
What I think, or what the GoldenEye theme to me is, it represents everything that is in the film within this little time that the credits are displayed on screen. The main title sequence is displayed on screen. It has a great allure. It's a very alluring song, I think. It represents very well the danger, the spy element of it. That's the most spy thriller music you will get in that film.
Absolutely, right. That's true.
And no songs after that could recreate what I felt with GoldenEye and still feel until today. It's a very alluring song.
Agreed.
Same as in the lyrics, it's like a puzzle you have to piece together, because you don't exactly know what every line of the lyrics mean. I mean,
right.
There's talk of shadows and all of that, which reflects in the film itself, in the themes of the film. And we don't need to speak about Tina Turner. I mean, I love Tina Turner.
Yeah,
and
right.
She was the perfect choice for that. I could not have imagined anybody else.
No.
And as you say, clear, crisp. The sound of it is just amazing. And listening to it on headphones today, it still amazes me.
Oh, it's like holiday for years. Yeah. The only thing that I hate about the GoldenEye title track is that you can hardly find the version that's in the movie. As in the movie, it has this nice at the end. There's this dum 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 dum. And usually the only recording you can find is where it fades out in the end, and it just blurs out a little bit. There's a fade out, and you hear the strings. But it exists somewhere. I had it at one point. I don't have it anymore. But really, with that bombastic ending, like it's in the movie, I don't understand why they wouldn't use that. Why they have this version even on the official soundtrack that just muddles out. It's a bit of a pity.
Yeah. But it has been done over the years, starting in the 50s, 60s, 70s, lots of fade outs. I hate them, even in instrumental tracks, because you have to sing on. And you have to fade your voice out as well. But I have to go further and further from the microphone to create this effect. It's stupid. I like it when a song ends with a cut. Yeah. And of course the movie version. Yeah, sure. It's the best one. But as we said, La La Land Records will probably release it soon.
Hopefully. And we had an
Hopefully.
Yeah, we had. No, I mean they have to do it. They have released everything. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that we had an interesting discussion about that one evening when you said, "Well, is there so much missing actually on the original score?" And I said, "Oh yes," and I can tell that from a painful experience, because back in the day, like you told, we had a Discman, and I remember with a good friend back in school, we bought the GoldenEye soundtrack as well. We had longer hair and all the time, even during math lessons and in breaks, of course, we had the earplugs in, and we listened to the GoldenEye soundtrack on repeat, and we always said there's so much missing. I mean, starting about the dam music, talking about the Tiger Escape music, the St. Petersburg cue, but the difficulty would be that all these things that we talk about that are missing, those are very, very short cues. I mean, the dam, for instance, that's probably 25 seconds worth of music. The St. Petersburg cue is like 15, 17, 20 seconds. The Tiger Escape music, again, it's like a minute or so. And of course, you can't fill a soundtrack CD just with these short cues. Maybe they will connect it to other tracks, or so I'm really excited to see what they will come up with, because they did some clever things, like in The World's Not Enough re-release also, where they added like a separated version of the Gun Barrel and the Bilbao intro, where one track or one part was just the electronics and the other was just the orchestra. And so maybe they will come up with cool things like that. So yeah, definitely extremely looking forward to that. And perhaps the fitting time would be like now, October, November, to sort of go near the actual anniversary of GoldenEye. Yeah.
What do I get from you if they release somewhere in December towards the anniversary? November, December.
I think we'll stay true to the tradition of me buying 2 or 3 copies of every soundtrack and giving you one.
Okay.
Right,
I accept that. That's how you get things for free, people.
Soundtracks, always, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, with their recent releases and the announcement that they are planning to do this continuously, especially with the Bonds, I'm pretty sure they are aware of the 30th anniversary, and it is just a brilliant opportunity for a company to use that and say, hey, here it is. We know you've all been waiting for it, and it's the anniversary. We make it Anniversary Deluxe Unreleased Edition. 5,000 copies, whatever. Everybody would be happy. And that's exactly what the Bond world is missing. And what I also said on another video of mine in the Bond 26 roundtable, we need that merchandise machine again. We need
definitely
proper merchandise that is tailor-made to a wide audience. So for the people who like to buy the occasional poster or book accompanying a film or just the soundtracks or a vinyl record of the soundtrack, I would love to have a vinyl record of the GoldenEye soundtrack. I mean, as much as I despise it in parts, but we know, I don't need to tell you, on vinyl everything sounds different.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of them, and they sound really, really great. The best sounding is Live and Let Die.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you sit down and you put your headphones on and there's GoldenEye blasting through the eardrums, and you will always hear something new.
Yeah, true.
And you will always appreciate hearing another nuance, and then you think about the scene in your head, and maybe you arrive at some of the conclusions we made tonight. So it's always worth to watch GoldenEye again, and maybe if you did not like Eric Serra's music, maybe you see it in a different light after seeing our episode tonight, which clocks in at almost 1 hour and 50. That's the longest yet. Yannick.
Okay, there we go.
We're really, really good.
Or really, really bad.
So, cool. I don't know. People, write it in the comments. If you enjoy what we do, we love this kind of thing. We love analyzing, and the 30th anniversary of GoldenEye is the perfect time to do that. I agree, it's a lot of time to invest into just one film, but it is, and back then was, a fantastic production. And there's even more. We're not finished. I mean, this video series has 5 episodes, and this is episode 3. Number 4 will be the action of GoldenEye. So we will speak about Action Galore. That's the title of the episode, Action Galore, which includes not only the action sequences, but we will speak about the stunt work, the miniatures, the locations. We'll mix everything up a little, because that's the final episode where we will deep dive into the world of GoldenEye, the film. And in the final episode, we will look at the cultural impact that GoldenEye had, including the games. That's going to be fun.
Yeah,
that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yes.
And maybe until then I had a demo of Dangerous Connections. Maybe that's like waiting for a La La Land record.
If not by October, then, well, God help me.
3 clicks on the fuse.
Oh, grow up.
Oh, bollocks. See you next time.
That throw.
Yeah, I throw like a girl. I don't have much space here. I'm sorry.
If that was the movie like that.
Yeah, I would be the perfect Boris type character. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
On that notion, thank you for watching, everyone. Yannick, merci beaucoup. It was a very enjoyable evening, and I hope you join us next time, which is pretty soon. I think Saturday, Sunday, in this week, where you will have the final 2 episodes, so you can make a GoldenEye weekend. Until then, like and subscribe, leave us comments. We try to look at everything and try to answer most of it. Until then, have a great day, Mon fans.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.